That's pretty good, almost a little bit more maybe. Okay. So, what we're going to do is we're going to draw on this white mask layer with black paint. And what that does is it burns a hole basically through the mask and allows the background image to poke through. And you'll see that happen right here. And that's the original color of the bike pulling through. So like I said, I'll just kind of quickly go over here and trace this out. And now when you're doing it, you don't have to be super concerned about making mistakes. That's one of the cool things about layer masks, is they're completely editable. So let me just draw through a little bit of this, and I'll show you what happens if we make mistakes. We can easily go back and fix them, which is why they're so nice. The other way that you could do this too is, it would be a little hard with this because there's so much detail in the foliage behind, but you could go and create a layer mask. You could go through and create a selection and then use that to apply to the layer mask. But that's easier when you have a lot of contrast between the background and the image. And here they're both in focus, and they're both pretty detailed and dark, and a lot of darks and lights. And it would be kind of a pain in the butt to make a selection out of that. So if you take your time, a little more than I'm doing here, in drawing over it, this is actually a pretty good way to do it. And you can actually even use some of the Refine Edge tools in this, which is pretty neat that they let you do that. Hold down the Shift key and we'll just drag our photo over a little more. And if you're doing this and you're wondering, you can't quite remember what all is red on your bike, all you have to do is come over here, turn off the black and white adjustment layer for a second, flick it back and forth. Oh yeah, those are red. Let's get those. You can see where you've missed. So you hold down the Shift, or hold on the space bar, and we'll just move it over. Now, continue this one around, and I'll show you some refinements. I'm using a Wacom tablet for this, which is really nice. If you're going to be doing a lot of photo editing or even just Photoshop work in general, it's worth the investment and the time to learn. It takes a little bit to get familiar with how to do it, but it basically lets you use a pen to interface with Photoshop instead of a mouse, and it's way easier. So if we zoom in a little bit, I did a fairly good job, but you can see there's places where I kind of fell off the bike and hit the foliage behind, which we don't want. It's kind of distracting to have the green showing up. But that's easily fixable, because what you can do is come in and draw with white. And we come over here, we'll switch our foreground to background, background to foreground, and we'll just come in and edge some of that back out. So any mistakes that you make, all you got to do is switch to drawing with white instead of drawing with black, and now that mask goes back, is reapplied in those areas. So I'm just going to come in and do a little bit here. Oops, how did I do that? Come on. There we go. I'll come back in, hit that a little bit more. Drop down my size. Alright. Those little staves are kind of tricky. And we'll switch back. So, like I say, you could spend a lot of time perfecting this. I won't waste a whole lot more of your time fixing those, but I do want to get rid of a little bit of the stuff that's distracting. And then I'll show you on how you can use those Refine Edge tools too. But this is an interesting thing that you can do. You know, use this technique of converting it to black and white and then masking out the subject to call out more attention to the subject is something that was really popular, like, I don't know, probably 8 or 10 years ago You used to see it all over the place. There were these people would, mask out or would black and white convert an image and then would, bring out people's eyes. And but a bike like this is a common one that you see some places. It's not quite as common to see this technique used now, but it's a good one to learn, and it's a good way to practice your mask work too. Because the neat thing about masks is they can also be applied to any filter effect or other things too. You can hide an image in the background and then just have it peek through in little areas that you want it to. Masks are one of those deceptively simple things, but that is actually extremely versatile. So it's a good thing to practice using. So, alright, let's zoom out a little bit, see what we've done. Yeah, not too bad. If you come back over to here and scroll down a little bit, we get some options for adjusting that mask. And here's, is that a little bit, yeah, mask edge, yeah, mask edge. So, and you can still edit this one where, oops, I'm drawing black here. You can still edit it even when you're working on it. There we go. But some things like Smart Radius, it's good to turn on and check and see if that affects it. Doesn't always have too big of an impact. But a good way, if you're experimenting with some of this and you're trying to figure out what it does, is take it all the way up and see the worst case. Okay, so that kind of degrades, it loses our edge a little bit. That's a little bit better. That's about in that range. And what this is doing is just kind of adjusting the edge of the mask that you painted on and trying to make it look a little bit more natural. Feather is a nice one. It kind of softens the edges. You can shift the edges around, make them bigger or smaller if you drew it over a little too much. Okay, so just do something like that. And there we go. Let's zoom out. And that's basically the black and white conversion with a color or with a mask over the top to allow the color to poke through. You can give a kind of interesting, effect. Really highlights the subject, draws the eye to it. So, hope you guys found that interesting, and I'll see you later.